Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on building economic resilience. My name is Mart Veliste, and I'm one of the thematic experts on SME competitiveness. And also with us from the policy learning platform side, there will be my colleague Luke, who will join us briefly. And in the background, we have Magda and Lotte, who help us to run this webinar in technical matters. And I will now introduce you the speakers briefly. So Juha, could you please turn on your camera and your microphone?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Juha Ala-Mursula.
Thank you, Juha. Then we have Pietro with us. I think your microphone is off at the moment, Pietro.
Sorry, thank you. I'm Pietro from Liguria region, FILSE, financial institution of the Liguria region. Thank you.
Thank you, Pietro. We have Balázs.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Balázs Barta. I'm from Pannon Business Network, Western Hungary.
Thank you, Balázs. And finally, we have Esteban, who will join us in the panel discussion.
Excuse me, I have a problem with the button. My name is Esteban Pelayo. I am the director of the European Regional Development Agencies Association.
Thank you, Esteban.
Okay.
So indeed, thank you all also for joining our webinar today. We have over 100 registered attendees, and we can see that people are already joining or have joined us for this webinar. And the people we know are coming from both Interreg Europe projects, but also from further abroad. And I hope that this will be interesting for all of you. The webinar will last roughly 90 minutes. We will have 3 presentations, and then we will have a panel discussion. And I will talk about this briefly very soon as well. Just a few things to note on the rules of the game, so to speak. So you are always welcome to ask questions by using the questions function in the GoToWebinar setting. So whenever we have a presentation or a presenter speaking, we encourage you to ask questions. And then we will moderate these questions to the presenters from our side. Also, this is a recorded event, so all the video materials will go online on the Policy Learning Platform webpage afterwards. And of course, if you have any other aspects, you can also use the chat function or contact the technical support, Interreg Europe, and ask them for their advice to solve your issues. And if we do not manage to answer your question today during this webinar, then don't worry, we will come back to you afterwards with your information requests, and we will send you an email later. But this is enough for introduction. So I will now actually ask our technical support Lotte to help me share my screen with you. Thank you, Lotte. And hopefully you see my screen now. Okay. So can somebody please confirm if you can see my screen?
We can see your screen, Matt.
Thank you very much. So yes, well, this is the webinar on building resilient economies. And the logic of the webinar is as follows. So first, I will spend a few minutes to introduce you the topic, and then we will have our 3 presenters. And so first of all, we have Juha Ala-Mursula, who will talk about the Oulu case, and specifically how they had to restructure their economy after the downfall of Nokia. Then we have Pietro De Martino, who will talk about second chance of Genoa, and he is representing the REBORN project. And then we have Balázs Barta, who will talk about the Hungarian case and how they are building a sustainable and resilient economy there. And Balázs represents the Foundation project. And finally, we will have a panel discussion on how to build resilient economies of the future. And this panel discussion will largely focus on the COVID-19 and the economic crisis that has been caused by it. Whereas the first presentations are more about structural challenges to their local economies. So what is resilience? I will provide you a few definitions. So for example, the monetary union has defined it as an ability of nations or economies to withstand shocks and recover quickly from these shocks. Whereas the Joint Research Center of the European Commission defines it as the ability to be able to keep the societal well-being so that you won't lose the societal well-being you had before. And we also have a World Bank definition here, which also similarly defines it through minimizing welfare losses, but they do it in the case of disasters or sudden shocks. And of course, you can find many other definitions out there from research papers and other financial institutions, but they give you a sort of idea what is meant by economic resilience. However, a few things maybe to add to this discussion is, first of all, the time frame. So whenever you discuss resilience, you should ask, do you mean the immediate impact of a crisis, or do you mean short-term recovery or even medium and long-term processes? Are you looking at a 10-year perspective or something shorter? So this is always something good to keep in mind when you assess resilience. What is the perspective you take on it? Secondly, you can have nuances of meaning. So if you think of resilience as an ability of an economy or a region or a nation, then you can define it through vulnerabilities. So how exposed to shocks is your region? The shocks or this sort of exposure might come from, let's say, a large private debt or a housing bubble or perhaps corruption. So these things can all increase the vulnerability of an economy. Alternatively, you can look at the absorption capacity. So how quickly is the region or the nation able to respond to the crisis and cushion the immediate effects? So minimizing the immediate impact on employment, for example, or output. Or you can talk about long-term ability to recover. So do you have the capacity to reorganize really all of your resources and start building the common economy or restarting the economy again? So there are nuances that you can think here. And of course, both the challenges of resilience as well as the solutions to building a resilient economy can come from different themes. So it can be from the real sector, from public finance, from private finance, from monetary policy, or from the external sector. And these are themes that the G20 has identified, and they recommend different policy options for nations under each category. So it's a complex topic, is what I'm just trying to say to you. And today we will cover it based on the experiences of the regions that are presenting today. And there's also an aspect of whether we talk about just economics or societal factors. Again, for example, the Joint Secretariat of the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, they have a report where they studied the previous economic recession. And what they found was that if some countries perform well on economic levels and look quite good, their recovery, then if you add in societal elements, they might actually come down on the list. So for example, maybe there isn't enough spending in healthcare or education anymore because all of this has been put into rebuilding the economy. So the picture gets again a bit more mixed if you start looking both economic recovery as well as societal recovery. But why did we decide to host a webinar on economic resilience? Well, it's a very relevant topic. We have seen in the past few years that a lot of these large institutions are writing reports on this. The IMF, the World Bank, the OECD, and more notably in 2017, the G20, they adopted a list of principles to strengthen their economic resilience. And a similar discussion was opened up on the Eurogroup level in 2017 as well. So we can really see that this topic has been on the agenda for a few years now, and is of course even more relevant perhaps today. And for the European Union, naturally, this is a very relevant topic because, again, if you look at the previous economic crisis, what happened was that the real GDP dropped over 4%, unemployment rate went to 11% or higher, and still in 2016, many countries were still dealing with the aftermath of that and had not recovered fully. And also the experience of the previous recessions showed that the lack of economic resilience, perhaps in some regions, had negative spillover effects for others. So really, as the European Union together, we need to develop good policies to minimize these setbacks in the case of economic shocks. But so today, this webinar will focus on two themes, basically. So on the right-hand side, I have this picture of an abandoned factory, and this is to illustrate the structural challenges that our economies might face. And on the left-hand side, there is a picture of an empty beach. So this is, of course, about the COVID-19 context, where tourism in some regions has been put on a halt and was completely unexpected. And when we talk about structural challenges, then here are just a few listed that your region might also face. So you might have a pressure to automize and digitalize, which can be expensive. There is push for greener production and use of greener energy, which can be time consuming. There are demographic changes. We all know that the population of Europe is mostly aging. Your region might have issues of outward migration, where your talented young people go to the capital cities, or there is international competition, so that raising economies from the rest of the world are now increasingly competing with the companies from Europe. So these are the structural challenges that are in play, but of course you could add more to the list. On the other hand, we have natural disasters such as COVID-19. And this is a quotation from the World Bank from 2014. And what they emphasize is that while each natural disaster has immediate consequences as loss of assets or monetary expenditures, then you always have also long-term consequences with loss of output and production or loss of tax revenues. And this is unfortunately what we might be expecting in autumn or next year due to COVID as well. And just to emphasize on this COVID issue, then the OECD just recently, they released their new economic outlook, and they called it that it could become the most severe recession in nearly a century. And they are expecting the euro area GDP to plunge 9% or more, depending on how the virus will act in the autumn. And so these numbers are already very high, and even compared to the situation we were in 2009. And what OECD has also done is that they have identified that regions play a big role in this. Regions are impacted differently, and therefore regions also need to be agile and to find different ways of governance and policies to really tackle this issue. And this leads us to us. So what can Interreg Europe do? Well, we have our projects that were running already before COVID-19, and we have good practices from these projects. And so, for example, the project foundation that just began last August, their focus is on economic resilience, and they are collecting good practices and are devising new policies around it. The project REBORN is about second chance entrepreneurship. So companies that have failed due to crises, how to get them back up and integrate them back to the labor force. Skills Plus is all about training people with new skills and to have a flexible career path, which can be very relevant in the case of some companies going under. Or ATM for SMEs, which focuses on microfinance instruments. And microfinance might be the solution to soften the blow of the economic shock, so that you provide small grants for companies to stay afloat or for unemployed people to start their own new businesses. And then we have these projects, Stop Regions and Success Road, that both deal with business transfers and generational transfers. And these can also be structural challenges in some regions where you have many family businesses. And of course, we have many other projects under the Policy Learning Platform and under Interreg Europe that all are looking now for solutions to COVID-19. And I encourage you also to join our website and submit your own good practices on how or which measures have been taken to keep SME competitiveness flexible and to provide the support to your local companies and so on. And we have already gathered some good practices on our website, so I encourage you to take a look at this. So this was my introduction, but now I would present a short poll for you, and you can choose your answers in the poll. Yeah, so there's this poll about which poses the strongest structural burden on your regional economy, and whether it's automation or digitalization. Is it the push for greener production, use of greener energy? Perhaps it's something to do with demographic change, or is it international competition? So select all that apply in your case, and we'll see what the results will be among our audience today. And here we have the results, which I hope you can also see. And indeed, it seems that demographic change is one of the biggest challenges for our participants today, followed by push for greener production and greener energy. So thank you for participating in the poll. I would now like to give a word to my colleague, Luke.
Well, thank you, Mart. Welcome to everybody also from my side. Due to some technical problems, I joined the meeting only a bit later. But now, after we had this introduction to the content of our webinar, we can go, as Mart announced in his agenda, through the different experiences from our speakers. And without any delay, I would first then call Juha from Finland to take the spot, the presentation spot, to tell us from his experience from the Nokia crisis some 10 years ago. Juha, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Luke and Mart. Are you able to see now my slides? Okay.
It works fine, Juha. You can go on.
Okay. Oulu, we are the biggest city in the north part of the Europe, in EU side, and also the biggest city in the north, Sweden and Finland and Norway. And we have a kind of local hub. So. And we are located 200 kilometers south from Arctic Circle. We have a city is 415 years old, and we have passed many big crises. The tar business, where all the sailing boats were using, was where the lot of wealth came to this area. Then we have some paper industries, and then came ICT, and now we are taking the next level. Development in digital side. Beside of the kind of communication products, we are also utilizing this for many areas. So this is the Oulu. We have our economy is so that in 2017 we have about 19,000 or 18,500 high-tech jobs, altogether about 90,000 jobs in the city. And we have a very high-tech oriented environment. And we have 2 universities. It's a good base for the activities. So we have about 25,000 students, and then we have a secondary level, other 15,000 students. So we have a lot of young people in the city. We have also very good basic industry. We have a paper machines. We have a chemistry side. We have a stainless steel factory located about 100 kilometers north, and a black metal in about 80 kilometers south. And then we have a soon carton factory and cellulose factories. Also, the one nuclear power station is built. But we're always known as the high tech and the wireless side. So we have more than almost 10,000 wireless engineers in the city, and we have an entire value chain from the silicon to the cloud services there, and mobile phones were playing very important part until 2014-15, where the Nokia mobile phones walk out from the business, and only this infra side product was left. So that we have also couple small players developing handsets in the city. So at the moment, but we used to have a lot. And a very, very short time frame, 3,500 people get laid off. And it took place so that we had a Nokia mobile phones reducing the headcount. They sold some of the activities to Microsoft, Broadcom, and Accenture, and then suddenly they were taking these activities out. So we have 3,500 people unemployed, plus then on the second level, subcontractors and contractors were about other 3,000. More or less 7,000 people need to find a new kind of job. And what has been coming up is that we had a nice amount of kind of growth companies. We have some invest-in companies, and also we had some local companies start to grow very heavily when the skillful labor was available. And 2017, we had a number of the ICT employees were bigger than what was a time when Nokia was the biggest. How we did it? So we look about the future, very much about what kind of things which are the growing. So we look like Frost & Sullivan estimates which areas are growing, and we decided that this ICT is a good brand, and we have continuous what we used to do in 82, but instead of making the handsets, we start to develop all other kind of things. And we are also happy that we already 2015 we had a first 5G test networks in the city, and before the commercial launch we have 3 different 5G test networks here, and we have been able to develop the kind of things. How it was happened is that we spent a lot of time with different research organizations, universities, and developing different kind of ecosystems, how to develop activities. And we also made good environments and testing facilities. We also had very much activities within the international players, investors. We also organizing a lot of events, and then this academy is very crucial part in order to get the latest know-how to the systems. In very special effort we did for the startups. So we had a kind of own startup program, what was the combination with the public players and the private players, and we did that very much together. And then we decided to focus, for instance, the next generation of the development side. And so we had then kind of IoT focus, and this is now that we have a lot of companies. Our biggest company who came out of this crisis have now turned over 2.6 billion euros. So we have many of them around 20-30 million euros turnover point of view, and so on. But with that was the one thing what we developed. Other bigger focus area was the healthcare side, and here we can see some of the products what came out from this exercise. So we had for instance, I'm wearing here kind of ring, health ring or Oura ring, what is very famous, especially when you look about Hollywood actors. Everybody almost wear this kind of ring, and it measures your pulse rate and your sleep. Also, Polar has a headquarter here, and that's been doing a lot of new kind of products, but also a lot of other kind of welfare and health-related products came out of that. And how that happens, that we have very good services for the companies. We had also a very good way because the local market is very small. 250,000 people are living here, so we have day one we always do the international business and activities. We have also practical tailoring for business coaching side in order to prepare the entrepreneurs and the growth companies for ready to take, for instance, external investors on board. And we've been really trained the people to work with the business angel, business venture capitals, because that is kind of own world, how to work with the VCs side. Also investors, we have tried to do many things for them in order to get high-tech companies on board, and then to get investors on place. And also we established kind of events, like this is kind of a crazy idea, is that we are at the winter time when the sea, river and the lakes are frozen, we are drilling the hole, and we are giving unlimited time for the entrepreneurs to show their business ideas to investors, but they need to do that from the hole of the ice. And kind of crazy things also helps to get the attention. And then we have built very good VC ones from the seed to the kind of exit phase, and that has been the key issues We also been doing a lot of work with the FDI side, so that we have about 25 companies have been landed to city in order to utilize this activity. And also we got some recognitions from the, for instance, Nokia side that they have been increasing now the infra products development and activities in Oulu region. So they have now 2,500 people working in the city, and we are developing the 5G side. And also we started to work with the next generation 6G side, and that will be ready soon. Publicity is extremely important to get known and to get kind of free market share. And conclusion, we say that it's close. It needs to be coming from the research and this know-how, how we can develop the new kind of things. But we have been working ideas from bottom to up. So it's not other way around, but it's bottom up to up, and that's the entrepreneur side. And the kind of enterprise and entrepreneurship is extremely important there. And the public sectors, we see that we need to enable and encourage, and also risk sharing side to get this activity ongoing and to help the kind of cooperation between different things. And we need to, in the day one, to be international, because most of our products are for the international markets and global demand. So the previous slide, the picture is more like from midnight, couple around this time frame, and this is the picture in September when the Northern Lights entertain our living here. So thank you very much. This was my short presentation.
Thank you, Juha. Very interesting. Juha will take the first questions when maybe the audience is submitting additional one. I would come back to when preparing the webinar and looking for the cases. This one stood up, and I stumbled over a quote from yourself, actually, and you said, looking back, something like this, you can say that Nokia's problem were some of the best things that happened to Oulu. Would you still say that? Could you elaborate a little bit?
Yes, because when the Nokia was the Nokia mobile phones was the greatest, it just attracted all the talent there, and because our society is so small. And now when we just suddenly get about 7,000 people redundant one way or other, we need to kind of diversify this know-how to different business areas. And now we are in a situation is that we have a lot of activities to Asia, we have a lot of activities to the USA, they are in different kind of businesses. And so we are not so depending about one business. When something goes wrong, either in the business wide or in the management side, in some of the bigger company which is kind of employing too many people in the certain areas, it has been total death or kind of extremely difficult time. Now we have diversified our risk to the many baskets, and so that it's the impact of the kind of hiccups is not so big anymore.
Okay, that's thank you. Another point is you mentioned your presentation this strong support to the startups and the strong startup ecosystem. Did you also experience some turnaround in previously existing companies? Did they also adapt to the in other sectors than the ICT? Was there also some kind of positive effects?
We have a kind of a startup culture in the many areas. It's not only the ICT areas, it's just in the normal shopping areas. We have also kind of digitalized many of the kind of ordinary business side. And now it's even when this COVID-19 is impacting, so more and more activity is using kind of new kind of business models like web shops, digital kind of sales and marketing activities, and also the business model change, and all of those it's helping helping us, even utilizing the real estate business. So we have using a lot of 360-degree cameras and kind of virtual live VR activities and AI activities and so on.
Yeah, and maybe a last question at this stage, as you come back later also in the panel. You mentioned the ecosystems, which is also something we worked in the policy learning platform. Did this crisis or with Nokia change the way you worked, or were you already used to work in ecosystems, let's say, before?
A lot. It changed a lot because now we have a much kind of common goals, and we have built kind of clusters. Like we have now in one cluster, for instance, what been lately working is the car cluster. So we have more than 40 companies and almost 1,000 people are now working with the new cars. So we are building software, but also hardware parts to the car industries. And then on the financial side as well, and then also in this IoT area is the big, and the healthcare side. We have 4 big ecosystems even in ICT area, which is utilized for that.
Okay, thank you. Juha, then I suggest we come back to you in the panel at the end of the session. Thank you for now. We can go then back to the next presentation. With a different case. It's going to be a presentation from an intervention from Pietro De Martino from Italy, and it's a case which addresses another kind of crisis, which is more like a sudden crisis. Pietro, just say maybe a few words to start. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Luke. Yes, it's a quite different crisis. It was as well as was an expected crisis, because what happened in 2008 was terrifying, a bridge collapse, which affect all the economy of my region. So, but before to introduce, to go on with my presentation, I would like to show you one short video, which synthesized what happens 2 years ago and what is happening. But basically, okay, so it was very short video, but it's very how every time I see it, it's it's terrifying what happened in 2008. It just was only 1.5 years ago. It was the 13th of August in 2008, and it's what's happened after the collapse. It was incredible. It was a very example of positive resilience, which one area, one region, which one population can demonstrate as the capacity to recover and to rebuild and to restart. Now, I'm very proud to say that it's in 2020, only after 1.5 years, the build will be inaugurated next July. So even in terms of when Mark spoke about ability to recover and time frame, well, this was a very short time frame if you respect what we did, not only in terms of rebuild a bridge, but was in terms of rebuild a society and rebuild a vision for the next future, which will be not so far. It will be a next future of green economy, of new dreaming, new idea, new innovation, which will make all the area then you see on the left totally it was an industrial area, totally destroyed, even in terms of a social point of view. And the next future will be an area, smart area, with people will be able to live, to work, to interact together, and to create a positive community. The impact of the bridge collapse was amazing. It was very dramatic. But first of all, 43 victims, people which came from everywhere, just passed through the bridge in the wrong time. Every people living in Genova, like me, for example, we did the bridge 2, 3, 4 times per day. So it was very incredible to see what happened. But then the area just downstairs the bridge, all the company, all the building, all the houses which are down the bridge were destroyed. So impact with very difficult impact directly to the people and the company lived under the bridge. But basically all the transport connection, intra and extra the city of Genova and the region was totally interrupted, which means that I cannot move from my house and go to visit my parents that were on the opposite, but even I cannot move from my house to go to work. And and we were not, of course, ready, just like we had now in COVID times, to smart working. Anyway, it's and so this create a very crisis for all the economy of Genova mainly, but for all the region. We are, as you know, Italy and my region as well are made of a system of micro, small company, all together, all linked together. And basically, they work as a sub-furnisher of a big company, and one of the big company collapsed because it was just under the bridge, Ansaldo. So there were more than 1,000 SME which they were temporarily closed, and now we are proud to say that all these companies are still alive and they restart the business. I want to show this building. This is my building, the building where I work, and basically I live some of my my time try to connect people and innovate my region. This is the incubator, and is just the first building that was not touched by the bridge collapse. Just the front end of the area before the bridge. So, and it's not a normal building. It's a building where usually, just like all the incubators, all where the people go to work, where there are entrepreneurs, there are employees, there are innovators. A building where we generate idea, we try to be innovative, we try to be disruptive for the area, and so it was very easy to try to translate our philosophy, our methodology of working in in how to solve the crisis, how to cope with this problem, and how to afford different themes that we had to afford in order to solve these problems. The experience that we just started to learn about REBORN approach, which is dealing with people who want to restart in terms of entrepreneurship, people which has affected by some difficulties, some failing, and now they have to reconvert and to restart into new business or in any other experience, working experience. The REBORN approach try to take the best value from basically 3 issues, which is capacity building, the positive image for a starter, and solution to finance. These 3 issues, 3 topics, needs to be designed and adapted perfectly to people who try to be, thanks to their resilience, but they try to restart and try to redesign their life. And incubation and labs of FILSE have been used to be the house of these people, and not only economic, not only in terms of technical hosting, but even in terms of people hosting. And when bridge collapsed, we opened the doors of our BICs, and we transformed our laboratory in well, in social laboratory, because we start to speak with people, entrepreneurs who are failing. We start to speak with people who are losing the job, and we start to speak with people that living in that area and they lose houses. So in science,
Pietro, excuse me, can you have only 2-3 minutes left, if it's possible?
Okay, so okay. What we start is we start to work on these 4 areas, and especially on finance as a public institution, as a public region. We try to provide guarantee fund for company. We try to provide loans to all the SMEs that have been damaged. This is of course complementarity with well, a huge amount of money that the ministry the industry ministry of the Italian government puts on the table, and even try to organize compensation, private and public compensation for people that have suffered damage. The incubation labs, we hosted immediately the company that has been destroyed after the bridge. Even the company that usually works in our incubators suffered the crisis because they suspend, of course, they interrupt the activity. So they make them, they interrupt the rental field, of course, in order to let them to advance. But basically, all the incubated enterprises have been supported in order even to interact with the external ecosystem. Anyway, it's in terms of capacity building, we open a REBORN desk just to support all the people and the business in trying to find solution, and even informing the regulation in terms of what implications there are in case of bankruptcy or not, and how to support the second starters. We provide training. We try to keep very closely with these people. We present in funding calls, opportunity model. We try to make them learn from their mistakes. And of course, we try to complement this activity with other project supporting startups and startups creation, which already worked in the region, like Start and Grow project financed by Social Fund Liguria, or Opera, which is another Interact project on labor opportunity. But what is was very, and I underline this point, was very relevant, is to work on the image of these people, because we try to listen them, we help them, we coach them, we try to them included in our stakeholder networks, institution, people. So we try to create an economic, but basically a social community. So now we are very proud to say that we were able to recreate the social and economic condition for a start, and the incubators has been turned more into social and economical space of welcome and resilience. Okay, now the question is that we had good positive. We don't suffer any crisis in these 2 years of startups company, in terms of application, in terms of incubator, in terms of employment. But what's happened? It's happened that the crisis happened. We have a dream that is to create a red circle green factory. We had already planned the execution of the red circle, which is an amazing project, on green factory technology, and with this red circle, which will connect people and companies all together. What's happened now? Of course, thank you. But of course, what's happened now is COVID. Now we are, and this means that we don't stop our dream and our project, but we are ready to restart and to reborn again. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that, Pietro. Very striking case. Actually, the video is impressive. Actually, Mart, do we have questions from the audience, from the participants for Pietro at this stage? We have time for one or two questions, maybe.
Yes, we have one question. This comes from Astrid, and she asks that because she asks which institutions were the driving force in setting up the recovery process, that you were able to put in place these very quick support measures for SMEs. What enabled you to react so quickly?
What we were, of course, it was well, the time frame of the reaction has to be very quickly as well. It's both in terms of building reconstruction, because we had to restart, to transfer about one side to another side of the region. Without that bridge, the region was in two sides, divided in two sides, and no communication is possible. If you think that if you one worker who lives on the west side to go on the east side to the office, it takes 2, 3, 4 hours to drive for 10 kilometers. So totally collapse. So this is what we need to be to rush on this side, but even in terms of financial support to the company and the people as well, because it's even all the shops, all the activity, all the business down the bridge in the city, just like what happened now. It's a COVID situation. So we need to plan urgent measure very quickly, put the money in the pocket of the people and the company to survive and not collapse. So there was a very strong effort of regional government together with the national government, and try to create the most positive impact solution on that.
Okay. Thank you, Pietro. This was, I hope it was sufficient for Astrid. But there are no other audience questions. So Luke, if you have anything from your side.
Yes, thank you, Mart. We get moving also a bit into the COVID discussion. So in this case, I would suggest that we close at this stage for Pietro and go back to that when we have the panel discussion to this quick measures, to these immediate resilience measures, and we move then to our first case, which is also a different case, which is the case from Balázs from Hungary. It's not a specific one-day crisis or anything similar, but another form of economic resilience. Balázs,
thank you so much, Luke. I know I did not win the Oscar, but I would like to say with a thank you to the Cork Institute of Technology and the Grupodex team, because they prepared the foundation project, which is about economic resilience, and we started working on that last year. So we had several months ahead of the crisis started to already focusing on these activities within that. And as you can see from the start title, what we've been working on in the recent years is how to move from low added value towards a sustainable, resilient economy. And it was said by Mart at the first initial presentation that resilience could be needed maybe from digitalization. And this is what is happening to us. And I'd like to give you now an example how we are tackling that issue in Western Hungary. So as I said, we are located in Western Hungary. We are called PBN, Pannon Business Network. We are about 1.5 decades old, and we are very much focused on the international research and partnership projects. I will go into the details a bit later on, but we have so far realized more than 70 international projects with over 400 European partners. And returning to the topic of digitalization, in Hungary, we have very strong orientation towards manufacturing, and we have 500,000 registered companies. So it's a big number compared to the size of 9 million people, 9.5 million people. But when we look at the companies which are the high growth companies and which have the potential to have future employment, we have only 2,000 companies. And we started 3 years ago a holistic program of trying to understand how they adopt digitalization, how they handle that, how they absorb that, and then how they create value out of that, and how can we support that. And for that, we participated and coordinated a national program, as you can see, consisting of 8 various elements. And we contacted the 2,000 companies, and 300 of them said they are ready to work with us, which is 15%, which is not that bad. At the end, 235 appeared on workshops where we went to each part of the country with a team of experts. We did not want the companies to move. We went to the companies and we've talked to them about what is the program about and why we think digitalization is coming, and they have to prepare for that. After that, we contracted 150 companies out of the 235, and we told them that we come to you and we make on-the-job audits. We will go through your technology system, we look through your ERP system, how you build your business model, and then we will think together how to improve that. What is also a big value that out of that we could create a benchmarking database so they could be confronted how they are performing, not just to the cousin or neighbor that they don't like, but also to the national average of their specific sector. It's also an important element of the program that we could generate 50 million euro investment demand, and the government subsidized it with 50% co-funding. So it was very important that we did not just generate those digitalization demand, but we also have them to get satisfied. It was also part of the learning experience that 200 of them we have brought abroad. So last year we brought 200 business people, and not for the sake of travel. Of course, it's always nice to go to Barcelona or Paris or whichever attractive part of Europe. But what we did is we brought them to specific industries, and in specific industries, specific research organizations. We also prepared web programs, and we provided them trainings in our digital innovation hub, individually customized to each demanded portfolio, and we did that for 50 companies. And then comes the question that if that we made so much effort for 2 years, what was the result of that? You have to know that the average of a company, customers, is 4 million euro and 73 persons, and the owner is and that's how I can feel young, and that's why I like working with them. Their average is almost 60 years old of the owners. If we look at the export performance, we can see that half of the companies have zero export performance, and only 14% can be regarded as export-oriented among the high-growth companies of Hungary. If we look at what is demanded from them from mentoring, unfortunately, they were not so much interested in business models, not so much interested in the mentorship or competency development, but they wanted to learn about technology and the different kind of data-driven solutions on the shop floor. What is even more painful when we look at the data of how they are performing in digitalization, how much they applied on that, you can see that it's very, very limited how they use digitalization. In sales, it's very low, which which might be not so surprising, but what is surprising is that it's only 20% of them is using that efficiently in product development. Only 8% is advanced users of data in production system and digitalization, and only 2% knows what big data and data analytics is about. So the conclusion was that when we talked to them about cyber physical systems, and they are not satisfied even with their current ERP system, then how make them understand that digitalization is not buying about a new 3D printer, but about a new business approach they have to apply. So we said that there are 4 issues that we have to focus on. We have to educate them that do not focus on the tools, but rather on the applications that is enabled by the tool. We also have to help them to understand how to make translation into practice of digitalization, and how to make specific services as the new business model. And we had to also understand that even when we talk about 500,000 companies, when we want to focus on companies who are ready to take digitalization, we have very serious size issues in Hungary. And then we had a series of Central European and Interreg Europe projects where we wanted to come up with solutions of how to come over that challenges. And there were 4 elements, and I have 4 slides to explain the 4 elements context. We wanted to say that it's not a one-time and not a project-dependent intervention that we need, but we need a program how to overcome that. We cannot do it without any policy collaboration. And I don't mean party policy collaboration, I mean a framework set by municipality or region where everyone is committed towards the same direction. And this is why, for example, Interreg Europe is especially essential for us. In Hungary, we have a very strong focus on automotive. So it's very important that we use this digitalization shift also to diversification of our monofocus of the industry. And we have to get new knowledge to our ecosystem because we don't have so professional universities that are capable to provide such service locally. So how did we do the policy framework? We went to the city and we went to the region and we explained them that this tendency was coming and we have to prepare for this. And it's also not just for the companies, but also for the communities, for the elderly, for the juniors, for the pupils, and it's a societal challenge. So, and to overcome that and to face that, we need a kind of framework with those 2 players. And we are very proud that these 2 organizations, 2 municipalities signed an agreement with us, which we call Forum Digital. And that's targeting that we want to have a kind of European level of digitalization services in our region. Then we wanted to make practical experience within that. And when we say complex intervention, it means that we need to have, now we have a 300 square meter digital innovation hub, but we have to extend that. And we convinced the city, and next Thursday we will have General Assembly, where we have a presentation to the city management. I think we have a very promising opportunity that we will get the contract. And it means that this year we will build a thematic digitalization center. Why is thematic? It will be 2 floors. On the first floor, it will be financed by the city. There will be digital-driven community events with senior academy, with junior profession orientation meetings, where they can have after curriculum events for the pupils. That one location, and the other one, that one level, and the other level is 1,300 square meters, where we will have thematic research laboratories, where we will focus on healthcare. We will focus on elderly care and manufacturing with showcases and the research labs and test labs coming from the industry, where users can experience how they can adopt these technologies and how they can use it. And we are also about to contract now universities, and they will make not only research there, but also their education for the students. According to our current plans, it will be a co-investment with the city together. We also wanted to move and shift towards healthcare in the recent years, and we built it up from ambient assisted living based projects 3-4 years ago, where we prepared applications for seniors. Then we moved on to a think tank approach in Central Europe, where we were learning from South Tyrol, Austria, Slovenia, how they are managing healthcare shift and digitalization in healthcare. Then we are very happy to be part of another Interreg Europe project, Intensive, where we learn about European scale, also in Finland, how they are managing orientation of digitalization in healthcare. And then what we started after that, we start to build a local knowledge out of that. We are very, very proud to start working together with BIREX and the University of Bologna. And hopefully this year we can start our first trainings for artificial intelligence in healthcare and in manufacturing. And based on that, we have submitted just today a proposal for Horizon 2020, where we would like to have with 14 hospitals a system of AI-driven digitalization tools for healthcare institutions. And as I said, we want to also focus on gaining knowledge. And by gaining this knowledge, we will be able to attract new foreign direct investment into our developed industrial park into the location. I try to be on time, Luc. I hope I managed. So thank you very much for the attention.
Thank you, Balázs. Thank you. I will take the first question while seeing if the audience has some additional question. Maybe you start from a very different point of view than Oulu, for instance, for modifying your economy. How far do you think you are? Which is your time horizon? Are you looking at? Do you have significant progress? Are you looking at 5, 10, 15 years? What is?
I just had a meeting with the university leader and the mayor this morning, and they had the same question. And they said, "I'm the mayor. I can think of only 4 or 5 years." But we agree that such a program should not be limited to political terms. So I think if everything goes well, this year we will have the first artificial intelligence training with the University of Bologna. And by the end of the year, we will have the new facility for the 1,300 square meter facility operating fully by the end of the year. So we try to be as efficient and quick as possible.
Maybe an add-on to the question. Will you also be looking for startups? I understand you focus a lot on the existing companies. Is there a startup ecosystem emerging or not so much?
I was so jealous listening to the Oulu presentation with the share of youngsters. I mean, I know that successful startups sometimes start over 40 years old, but in our culture, it is very challenging. So currently we are focusing more on upgrading of the existing high growth companies and attracting new investors from outside rather than building a startup ecosystem.
Okay. Mart, do we have a question from your side?
Yes, no, we have from audience, from Christian, and he asks, besides the High Growth Company Academy that you presented, do you have any other such targeted company support measures in the region?
That's the other one, and one side. On the other side, we have the mid-caps. So the companies between 500 and 2,000 employees in our region, which have already the capacity to make research and development on their own. They have their management team dedicated, and they have sufficient resources, and their operational excellence is a secondary target for us.
Okay.
Thank you, Balázs.
Very
good. So I suggest that we close here. Balázs is coming back to the panel in a few minutes. So in the first part of the webinar, we focused on economic resilience and related practices and experiences, leaving the COVID-19 pandemic crisis aside. We had already scheduled this meeting way before, but the next section, the panel discussion, we will go back to this COVID-19 focus and how the regions reacted. But before we go to the session, I would just ask Lotte to come up with our second poll. Lotte, maybe you can start it. Yeah, it's a question about what kind of measures your region implemented to achieve economic recovery. Different models you have. Probably there might be others, but basically here we are considering the grants, so non-repayable money loans, so with preferred interest. Some voucher schemes we've seen many regions have some more like soft schemes, vouchers enable people to get access to some consultation services, like for instance digitalization. Some measures to avoid layoffs, like for instance, the government's paying some part of the salaries to avoid layoffs and so on. So let's see what the results are. Yeah, the grants are a wide majority, and we have also the loans and the measures to avoid layoffs. We have a little facilitating sharing of best practice, but maybe those are more measures that going to the mid and long term. Okay, thank you, Lotte. So we can start now the final session of our webinar, and I would then invite Esteban to join us and to tell us about the experiences of EURADA, how to deal with the COVID-19 issues, and what you are doing currently, Esteban.
Yeah, I am very grateful that you invite us to be here with you, because and the panel that you have created, because so something that we were talking always, that the current situation always has someone who has suffered the same similar situation that could be a lesson learned. I like very much what we have from Oulu and Genoa and from Hungary. Thank you very much. EURADA, what we are doing is to foster territorial cooperation. These are very good moments for that, for policy learning. And what we have done is to gather all the measures that the development agencies are carrying out in order to help them to imagine what they could do. Everything is public, is online, is in the address economic response, or just you go to eurada.org and there you see COVID. I would like to tell you briefly what development agencies and regions are carrying out mainly as a general overview of and complement what has been presented. They are doing basically three things. The first thing was urgent measures in order to facilitate the collaboration and the supply of health equipment or medical equipment. And in that sense, for example, Darino, in the development agency in Hungary of South Great Plain, organized a hackathon about different startups in order to provide this type of equipment. Or the French development agency has been very active. For example, I remember DEVAP from Centre Val de Loire, who has a collaboration platform to provide protective equipment like masks or things like that, or Nouvelle Aquitaine. Nouvelle Aquitaine, for example, has 800 requests from companies. As well, they help the development agencies and the regions help to shift the production, to change the production. Another thing that has been the goal is to help the companies to survive, not only the companies, but as well the people who are self-employment. And there we have the tourist industry and as well the cultural and creative industry that we know that were very, very important before the crisis and will help us to go after the crisis. For example, the development agency of Ústí region in Czech Republic has provided small grants to self-employment people, and this is quite interesting. And then we have the conventional measures to support the companies, the loans, the grant, or what Pietro was saying, the companies who are hosted in a public organization like an incubator to defer the payment of the fees. So these are mainly the three aspects that the entities has been done. In general, I would like to say that there have been a lot of things that has been done in policy learning. To give you an example, the Brussels-based Italian office, regional office, are having frequent meetings in order to share what the Italian region are doing themselves. So and to transfer not only the ideas of the European Commission initiative and other European Union institutions, but as well there. Or the French Association of Development Agencies has as well been doing several webinars in order to help. And what I am Spanish, and one of the things I like more is what the development agencies from my country have done. They have made a group on the mobile phone of the general director, the top manager, the top level manager, and they include me. I am lucky, and they are continuously telling to the others what the region is doing in order to help the companies, and I like a lot. Now, the moment is important, and I would like to emphasize that. But because the urgent measures, we all know what has been done, but now we have a moment where we have to plan the future. And there, I would like to mention something from outside of the European Union. We have very good contact with our American colleagues of the development agencies, and I remember at the beginning of the crisis, the director of the development agency from Galveston in Texas, who told us what happened before and after the hurricane, and told us that the most innovative companies before the hurricane not only survive, but as well get much more advantage after that. And now is the moment to plan what we should do in the future. And we all know that everything will come through Green Deal, digitalization, and better resilience, but it's the moment to really define in particular what we should do. So there is a room still for policy learning about how to access to the internal market, to the internationalization of companies, to get skills, and how we could make them to survive. This is, I am a panelist, this is what I wanted to say. We could share more good practice, but I think it's better to stop and then initiate the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esteban. We will, you can stay please with us. I will also ask our previous three speakers to join us again for the discussion. So Juha, Pietro, and Balázs, please come back. Turn on your cameras again so that we can have a discussion to close this session. Yeah, I think we have I think one question to all the participants from the audience, Mart.
Yes, and this question was actually sent in advance of the webinar already when people were registering. I don't, unfortunately, I haven't written down the name of the person, so I'm sorry for that. But the question was, do you have any practical tips on how SMEs can use the COVID-19 crisis to transform and strengthen their business instead of going to closure?
Yeah, I think that picks up what Esteban was saying towards the end of its intervention. Yeah, how can you help businesses? Maybe we can go around our speakers again. Juha, what would be your advice on this situation? What are you doing with this respect?
I think the digitalization is the key topics that what we have done, and that when the COVID-19 hit to our region, we established very quickly the process how to set up the web shops, for instance, our local small and medium-sized companies what are working in the consumer business. So we had a kind of a webinar, and we established about 50 web shops in the very short time frame in 3 or 4 weeks. Other thing is that we have been using a lot of kind of 3D caves for the virtual meetings. We have some activities going on in Germany, and that we have also been able to utilize this kind of caves, 3D caves for the communication and presenting the materials over the different countries, and also a lot of Teams meetings and webinars, and that has been kind of daily life. And most of our office workers have been working remotely with the whole period, so that has been kind of practice. And then, of course, a lot of kind of kind of assisting in the different kind of ways to how to present digital ways the materials. That's shortly.
Thank you, Juha. Pietro, maybe from your side, you were starting to say a few things also going this direction. Maybe and you have this experience from 1.5 years ago, and what are you doing now to help the companies? What is in addition to give them money, of course,
Yes, and yes, it was not only a question of money, okay, but what can brought this on the floor is my perspective point of view in terms of startups, which I'm convinced that it's the approach, the capacity of startups to be innovative, their capacity to bring this new idea and solution to our old economy, like we can say, but it's in terms of older kind of organization, all kind of product already existing. I think it's during this phase, the startups ecosystem are demonstrated a capacity, the best resilience capacity to overcome difficulties. But in terms of requests on new product on sanitary, for example, sanitary device, we helped different startups to produce new innovative device on 3D printing, for example, sectors or within our labs. And I agree with Esteban, which is that it's very important, the networks. It's very important to networking these startups, the existing SME, the big factory, and in a global ecosystem, because in this framework, incubators, agency, establishing networks helps to provide solution. I mean that it's I supported the participation of a lot of startups in competition, business idea, competition idea, organized by Space Agency, for example, of European Commission as well, and EBN as well, is all the leading networks operating in the European Union economy and social ecosystem. So altogether, with the innovation, with flexibility, we can survive and compete in a better way in the future.
Balázs, how is?
I would approach it from two sides. From one side, from what we work together with the municipality, that what is the joint effort we are working on to restart the economy. So there are 3 pillars there. That's one of them is buy local. So it's a kind of campaigning for making people aware of the importance of buying local products from local manufacturers or service providers. The second one is the go online. When, as it was by Juha said, there's a sponsorship for opening up on the online marketplace. And the third one is the spend wisely, which is a kind of cost-cutting initiative from the local government to cut rental costs. That's one side. The other side, what we also do only ourselves, is that, for example, we went on the radio about what we do on artificial intelligence and digitalization, and then a company called us with whom we work together on the High Growth Company Academy. They said they are working now on online sales, and they would like to ask contracted for developing their performance on online with different algorithms that are optimizing their presence and portfolio. Another one could be that another manufacturing company was working for the automotive. They had huge challenges now, and now they have a contract that they will produce the ventilators for the government. So these are the two directions how we are trying to tackle this.
Okay, thank you. Maybe another question to all of you, or let's see who wants to answer. Do you think, or do you see that this crisis will modify for a longer time durably the way you work and the services you offer to the companies? Is there Is there some kind of shift, or is it? How would you estimate that? Esteban, do you get the feedback from your members?
Yes, it has been shifted to more personalized and customized support. So, for example, the Finnish, I like that you guys, the Finnish are an example of that. They have created a network of support in this moment, and everybody knows that overall recipe don't fit all. So what everybody is now doing for supporting the companies is trying to go beyond what Pietro has said, beyond the grants and providing finance support, and really trying to provide added value from the public organization, establishing a partnership where we follow and we coach the entrepreneurs, not only the startup, but as well the established SMEs or mid-cap, in order to help them with internationalization or innovation. So this is my impression, and what we know from our members, that they are providing more close support, even on teleworking to the companies.
Yeah. Would someone else also say a word about this in your ecosystems? Do you feel some kind of Juha maybe, or?
Yeah, I can maybe say a few words. We can see that it has a lot of impact. I believe that even the office model, how the people are working in the office, will change, because with this remote working is maybe getting more familiar. Second thing is that also this innovation process is also can be taking place in the net, so that we have a different kind of platforms, how to generate the ideas, how to develop the ideas, and how to concrete kind of a common process there. Also in the software, we have a lot of hardware and software development in the city. It can be really amazing how even the testing has been automated, so that like an R&D center of like 1,000 people, there are only 5 or 6 people in the labs in order to take that kind of some few manual things, and then rest of the people are working over the internet. So that's kind of things, and everything took place in the very, very short time frame. So that is the way it will be changed. And also the housing. I think some people are now looking for instance, housing point of view, also some differences, that they maybe not to prefer to have a small flat only, but they can have a little bit more room if they need to some in the future spend time with more homes, so that it been start kind of a small boom to have a little bit more space around the families.
Yeah. Balázs, you have a very different environment. I mean, very different. It's a production environment. What did you observe? I mean, there is a startup world and the telecom, mobile, but the productive environment is a different one.
Yes. My personal view. Okay, I think that every change has positive side effects as well, if you can live with that. And for us, what it means, that it's accelerating the processes or the procedures that was going on in the last 10 years. So on one hand, we had a shortage of labor force. I mean, we had 1% rate of unemployment in our region, and the people wanted to have higher salaries without better performance, which was a loss in the competitiveness of the companies. What happened now, when we had the virus, in 1 month or 1 week, they laid off all the people. And it turned out that who are those employers who value their employees and who see them as a valuable asset rather than a tool for manufacturing. And those ones who appreciate their employees will get benefit from that when we will have the recovery of the economy. On one side. On the other side, it speeds up digitalization for manufacturing, obviously. So everyone wants to be more agile and more flexible in their production system. So it gives us a lot of opportunity in the term that there is a a stronger demand now, and it's not just something fashionable or trendy to focus on digital and online applications than it used to be before.
Okay, thank you for that. Pietro, maybe a few words from your side, and then after that we need to close because of the time. We come towards the end of the
Yes.
webinar.
Just a few one last consideration, which of course this digitalization process is changing all our organization. Even now, instead of provide renting room for office for my company, I'm providing rooms on the web through Skype, through Zoom, or so. It's a very easy example, but this means that we are completely change our activity and job, which means that it's one big challenge for the next future, which affects a lot the capacity of the company to develop is the human resource grow in terms of skills and capacity. Yeah. So our children are completed their school at home on computer, so without any lesson in the school. So how will be our training system in the future? How will be this might be accelerate the capacity of the next generation to be introduced in the employment system, in the working system. This is a very good challenge. One point. The second point is that the risk is to lose how to say, every region, every country has its as its flagships in terms of production, in terms of capacity. So the risk is to lose these flagships for a more globalization, digitalization society. So we need to work to how to manage this and for a better future together.
Thanks a lot. As mentioned, we need to close here to leave also our participants go back to their other online activities probably. I would thank you all very much for your presentation and also for your positive perspective, already looking at the future and the positive things and the opportunity in that. So we will just have a few words for closing. Mart, do you say a few words from your point of view, from the content point of view?
Yeah, I just want to thank all the speakers from my side, and I would like to grab from what I think it was Esteban who said that now is an excellent time to learn from the regions, and this is also mirrored in the OECD document or this report I mentioned, because they really identify that there will be asymmetrical challenges to regions, which might mean that what works in one nation near the capital might not work for the regions elsewhere in the same country. And therefore, you should really look at what other regions that are especially similar to you are doing and learn from their best practices. And this, of course, can be done through the EURADA network, as well as looking at the projects of REBORN and Foundation that have been presented here today, and other projects we have on Interreg Europe, and especially this good practice database on COVID measures. And then I hope that this webinar provided you both information on the structural challenges and how to address these long-term issues, because these won't go away whether COVID gets solved or not. And of course, then also learn from the short-term measures that have been mentioned by all of you. So thank you from my side.
Thank you, Mart. I will close with a few words from our side, from a short 2-3 slides on our own activities. So I hope that that will work fine. So just a few words on the policy learning platform itself to remind that you have on the website and on different events, online events currently, the knowledge hub events, the community, the good practices, different activities, publications which you can find on our knowledge hub on the website. today I would like to insist a bit more on the more personalized services. We discussed about personalized services right before. So we have the help desk where you can submit questions to us, to the thematic experts, and we will answer shortly by coming back to the expertise of the projects. We organize matchmaking sessions. So mostly when we have a specific request for a specific issue, we get at the table, or the online table, of course, currently some 3, 4, 5 experts who can answer your questions. This can be something very interesting for every participant today. Online discussions or webinars where we bring together different partners addressing a topic. And the peer review is a more extensive version of the matchmaking. So the experts are not only sitting at the table for 2 or 3 hours, but they are coming to your place. At least probably that's the way it will be once we can travel again, and that's the way it was. So you can have at your places 2 days of intensive meeting with peers to address some specific challenges. And the call for peer review is open permanently. You get the link here. We have upcoming webinars like this one, and there will be also some further online discussions more dedicated to COVID. We are currently preparing the program for July, so keep an eye on that. And we mentioned the COVID hub, and when you go to the website, the Internet Europe website, you have also this COVID access, COVID button, where you have access to the services. And yeah, please submit also your good practices to help us collect the information. So having said that, I think we can close for today the meeting. Once again, also from my side, a big thank you to our participants and speakers for the preparation work, the good preparation. And let's stay in touch in the upcoming months, because the topic will follow us, especially the digitalization topic. We will prepare different activities on this, and so we will keep everybody informed, of course. Thank you very much for today. Have a good day, stay safe, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, bye-bye.